You point to anything and say, yeah, that you fixed it. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Jai Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Yamuna Tira Vanachari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari. Jaya Vishnupad Paramahansa Purikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad of Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki Jai. ISKCON BBT Founder Acharya Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Jayom Vishnupad Paramahansa Pradikacharya Ashtotar to the Srimad of Divine Grace, Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Thakur ki Jai. Ananda Koti Vaishnavanda ki Jai. Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur ki Jai. Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki Jai. Samaveta Bhaktavrinda ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glory to Shri Guru and Gauranga. Well, here's someone we haven't seen in a while at the evening class. Haribol Prakash. Is there a book handy of the Samadhi's book? Or do you know? There might be one in the closet. No? Check it out. I thought I saw one there recently. The reason I'm asking is that today is the disappearance day of Vrindavan Das Thakur, and I forgot to read about him this morning, so I'd like to read about him this evening and do proper honor for him. Just see. I was right. Okay, so what's the verse? 30. Okay, so we'll do that in a couple of minutes. Okay. On this 25th day of April, 2022 in San Diego, we're reading from the Gaudiya Vaishnava Samadhis in Vrindavan book, compiled by Mahadidi Swami. And today is the disappearance day of Vrindavan Das Thakur. And so I'd like to read something about him. Very important figure in our Gaudiya Vaishnava Sampradaya. And there he is, the last one. Okay. Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. In her childhood, Narayani Devi, the niece of Shiva's Pandit, became mad with love of God upon receiving the mercy of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Later she gave birth to Vrindavan Das, who was the last disciple of Sri Nityananda Prabhu. On his guru's order, he wrote Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, which was originally called Sri Chaitanya Mangal. But then it was changed to Sri Chaitanya Bhagavat, because there was another Sri Chaitanya Mangal. It is practically a law among Vaishnava writers like Sri Rupa Goswami, Sri Sanatana Goswami, Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj, and Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur to always keep themselves in the background. They never mention anything about their family lineage or personal history. The authors of the best written and most relishable verses collected in Sri Rupa Goswami's Pajavali remain unknown. During the 16th century, entire books of exceptional transcendental prose and poetry were written by prideless Vaishnavas preferring to remain anonymous. Feeling utmost humility, such Vaishnava writers express themselves only in relation to their preceptors. Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj glorifies his gurus at the end of each chapter of Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. Sri Rupa Raghunatha Pade Yara Ash Chaitanya Charitamrita Kahe Krishna Das, which means praying at the lotus feet of Sri Rupa and Sri Raghunath, always desiring their mercy. I, Krishna Das, narrate Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita following in their footsteps. Srila Krishna Das Kaviraj Goswami shows his supreme homage and gratitude by honoring Vrindavan Das Thakur with the appellation Vyas in Chaitanya Charitamrita, Antya 2082. Quote, Vrindavan Das Thakur is Lord Nityananda's favorite devotee, and therefore he is the original Vyasadeva in describing the pastimes of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Close quote. As Srila Vyasadeva told Sri Krishna's pastimes in Bhagavatam and other Puranas, so Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur described Chaitanya Leela in the Chaitanya Bhagavat. The humble heart of Krishnadas Kaviraj pours out more praises of Vrindavan Das Thakur. Quote, hearing Chaitanya Bhagavat destroys all misfortune. By reading Chaitanya Bhagavat, one will understand the glories of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and he will attain the highest perfection of knowledge, pure love of Krishna. Since such a wonderful book could not be written by a human being, it seems that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself has spoken it through the mouth of Srila Vrindavan Das Thakur. I offer millions of respectful obeisances to the lotus feet of Vrindavan Das Thakur. By compiling such a valuable book, he has delivered everyone from the cycle of birth and death. This is Chaitanya Charitamrita Adi 8:33-42. At Mamgachi in Modadrumadweep, Navadweep, Vrindavan Das Thakur established deities of Nitai Gauranga and Sri Jagannath Dev. He lived there as a celibate and worshipped his beloved deities. Vrindavan Das Thakur had many disciples, including Gopinath Brahmachari, a descendant of Sri Keshava Bharati. In Krishna's pastime, Vrindavan Das Thakur is Srila Vyasadeva. His samadhi is in the 64 samadhis area, which I believe is at Radha Damodar temple. So that's Vrindavan Das Thakur. And for some years now, we've had a very wonderful version, a translation of the Chaitanya Bhagavat, complete with commentary by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And if anyone wants it, write to me at dravida108 and I'll send you a PDF. I can easily export it. It's actually in the database. All right. So, Vrindavan Thakur ki jai. Okay. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, if we could just turn this up a little because my voice is kind of weak tonight. Yeah, just a little bit. Thank you. Hopefully it'll be stronger tomorrow. Are you sure that we didn't read this verse? 3:1. Oh, okay. I thought you said 30. So we're reading tonight from the Bhagavad Gita as it is, 3rd chapter, entitled Karma Yoga, text 31. Ye me matam itam nityam anutishtanti manavaha. This is page 167. Shraddhavanto anasuyanto muchyante te api karmabhihi. Page 167 at the bottom. I'm going to wait for him. Got it? Okay. Ye me matamadam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karmabhihi. Okay. Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karmabhihi. Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karmabhihi. Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karmabhihi. Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karmabhihi. Tapas, page 167. 167. Go ahead. Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karmabhihi. Did you try it? Like to try it? Ye me matamidam nityam anutishtanti manavaha shraddhavanto nasuyanto muchyante te karmabhihi. Mataji? Not today. Okay. Anyone on Zoom?
Ye me matam itam nityam
Ye me matamidam nityam
anushtanti manavaha
anutishtanti manavaha
shraddhavanto nashyanto
shraddhavanto nasuyanto
muchyante te api karmabhi.
muchyante te karmabhihi. Anyone else?
Ye me matamidam nityam
Ye me matamidam nityam
Anutishtanti manavaha.
Anutistanti manavaha.
Shradhavanto nasuyanto.
Shradhavanto nasuyanto.
Muchante te pikarmabihi.
Muchante te pikarmabihi. One more? No, okay. Yea, those who may, my, matam, injunctions, idam, these, nityam, as an eternal function, anutishtanti, execute regularly, manavaha, human beings, shraddha, vantaha, with faith and devotion, anusuyantaha, without envy, muchante, become free, te, all of them, api, even, karmabihi, from the bondage of the law of fruitive actions. Translation. Those persons who execute their duties according to my injunctions and who follow this teaching faithfully, without envy, become free from the bondage of fruitive actions. Purport. The injunction of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom and therefore is eternally true without exception. As the Vedas are eternal, so this truth of Krishna consciousness is also eternal. One should have firm faith in this injunction without envying the Lord. There are many philosophers who write comments on the Bhagavad Gita but have no faith in Krishna. They will never be liberated from the bondage of fruitive action. But an ordinary man with firm faith in the eternal injunctions of the Lord, even though unable to execute such orders, becomes liberated from the bondage of the law of karma. In the beginning of Krishna consciousness, one may not fully discharge the injunctions of the Lord, but because one is not resentful of this principle and works sincerely without consideration of defeat and hopelessness, he will surely be promoted to the stage of pure Krishna consciousness. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jnanandana Shalakaya Chakshu Unmidatam Mena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. I was born in the darkness of ignorance, but my spiritual master Srila Prabhupada opened my eyes with the torchlight of knowledge. I offer my humble obeisance unto him and all members of Sri Parampara. So, this injunction, idam is this, and matam is injunction. Prabhupada mentions an injunction, and then he mentions injunctions. So, I think it's the injunction in the previous text, which Srila Prabhupada says in the first sentence of the purport. This verse, text 30, clearly indicates the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. So let's review that verse. Mai Sarvani Karmani. Therefore, O Arjun, surrendering all your works unto me, with full knowledge of me, without desires for profit, with no claims to proprietorship, and free from lethargy, fight. So, this chapter is about karma yoga, and the idea behind karma yoga, rather than just karma, what's the difference between karma yoga and karma? Well, karma is fruit of action, and fruit of action binds us to this world. We don't want that, because binding to this world means you're going to take birth again, and who knows what's going to happen. In other words, if you practice a little Krishna consciousness, you're sure to get a human birth. But we want to progressively act in such a way that we're negating or dissolving our previous karma and not engaging in any new karma, not developing any more new attachments or even good karma for which we'll have to come back again in this life and on this earth or somewhere in order to get the results of it. Because as good as karma can possibly be, say to go to Indraloka or Brahmaloka, you're still in the material world. And when your punya is exhausted, you come back again to earth. So you really haven't made any progress. And we've been doing that since time immemorial. Going down and then gradually coming up to human form, or going up and then falling back down to human form. And so what has it gotten us? We're still suffering. Birth, old age, disease, and death, and the threefold miseries. So in the human form of life, we have the ability to understand this transcendental knowledge that Krishna is giving in Bhagavad Gita and in other literature, as we heard in that reading about Vrindavan Das Thakur. I think you came after. This is his disappearance day, and so we have a little biography of him. there's not much. He says, well, the writers such as Krishna's Kaviraj, Vrindavan Das Thakur, they're very humble and they don't write any much about themselves. So it's hard to find out just where they were born and everything. But we have a little bit. And he's Vyasa, and Vyasa is expansion of Krishna. So Krishna's words are coming to us through these authorized books and realized saints and sages in the Gaudiya Vaishnava tradition, such as Krishna's Kaviraj in his Chaitanya Charitamrita, Vrindavan Das Thakur in his Chaitanya Bhagavat, Rupa Goswami in his Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, and of course Krishna in his Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam, which is also written by Vyasa, and in which Krishna appears and speaks in many ways. So these sacred books, as given to us by realized souls, such as Srila Prabhupada. I was just saying there's a wonderful translation of Chaitanya Bhagavat now with commentary, all in English, and commentary by Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. And it's available, I think it's 6 to 7 volumes, but it's in what we call the Veda base, which is free download. You get all kinds of books in. Or you can just write to me and I'll send you a PDF of it, you know. So these things are available now. And here, back to our present verses of the Bhagavad Gita, what Krishna says is that all your activities, the fruit should be given over to me as far as possible. Of course, we have to live in this world. But as much as possible, we should work and be conscious of working for Krishna. So our every act becomes a sacrifice. It becomes an act of devotion. As much as the pujari on the altar is offering the ghee lamps and making the offerings of the prasadam and the bhoga that becomes prasadam. So our whole life can be a work of sacrifice. And that sacrifice, of course, the most important sacrifice, what does Krishna say in the Bhagavad Gita? It says, Yagyosmi, Yagyanam japa yagyosmi. Of sacrifices, I'm japa. Of course, he was speaking in the previous age. In this age, Sankirtan Jagya, but it still centers on the chanting of the holy name. So there's no expense, and the value is inconceivable. Just by chanting a little bit, just by chanting once, you're eradicating so much karma, assuring yourself of a human body. You know, what to speak of chanting seriously every day and as much as possible, and associating with Krishna in that way, and becoming purified. And so here Krishna says, my sovereignty karma sanyas yadyatma chetasa. Adyatma chetasa means with full knowledge of the self. With conscious and full knowledge of the self. In other words, we're not doing it as some kind of a rote thing or just because someone told us to, but because we understand the value of it, how it is working. That this nirashir, with no desire, just like this word asha, right? Anyabilashita shunyam. This is a very famous verse in the Gaudiya Vaishnava canon. It's near the beginning of the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu, the Nectar of Devotion, where Rupa Goswami defines in one verse what the whole goal of the process is and what we're meant to aim for. Pure devotion. What's its characteristics? Anya abilat, this word asha. Asha means hoping and aspiring for something and working toward it. Now, mostly for most people, it's something material. Some degree, some amount of money, some relationship, something like that. It's something in relation to this world, which is changeable. You aspire for it, and even if you get it, time passes and you can't enjoy it anymore. It runs out, or your ability to enjoy it runs out, or time runs out, and you're out of this body. So it's silly to aspire for something material. This is Maya's trick. She lures you into aspiring for something to enjoy in this world. And half the time, you don't enjoy it, or you can't get it, or if you get it, it's not what you thought it was going to be, disappointing, because the material world is always changing. And so that asha, that is called asha pasha shatabada. In the 16th chapter, Krishna describes the characteristics of the demons. And says they're bound by thousands of ropes of asha, of material aspirations. Asha pasha shatabada. And those are those famous, there's another metaphor used for the knots in the heart. The grunta, vidya grunti, which can be thousands materialist type, of aspirations for this, and also means fears, things you don't want. That's another aspiration, right? So here it says nirashir, no material desires, either positive or negative. Well, they're all simply dovetailed to Krishna's desire. What does Krishna want? This is what we should ask. Prabhupada came to tell us that we should want to know what he wants and try to fulfill those desires. That'll make us happy. That's the basic principle of bhakti. So Krishna makes no secret of it. At the end of throughout he's saying, my sarvani karmani, to dedicate the fruits of your activities to me. Sannyasya means fully renounce them, giving them up completely. Adhyatma cetasa, with full knowledge of me, of the self, of the supreme self, without desires for profit. Nirashir, nirmamo, without the sense of proprietorship, claim to proprietorship. And then he it reminds me of another verse in the Bhagavad Gita. And then he very wisely says, and without any lethargy, vigata dvara. In other words, the material says, I can't enjoy the fruits, and I can't even hope to enjoy. I have nothing to call my own. Oh, I'll go through the motions, but I'm not really going to, No, you have to be enthusiastic. Free from lethargy. Fight. He wants him to fight. In other words, Arjuna doesn't want to fight. It's the last thing he wants to do. We know that already, right? His friends are on the other side, his guru's on the other side, and teacher, and his worshipful grandfather, Bhishma Dev, who helped them so much when they were children. So, on the material side, it's very logical. Why should I fight against these people who I love, I have these connections with, and the whole Kuru is there. It's a whole one dynasty. For a kingdom, so suppose I win the kingdom. It'll be soaked with their blood. How am I going to enjoy this? It'll be worse than not fighting. I'd rather go off to the forest and just beg. But he's not suited to do that, so he's just paralyzed. He sits down in the chariot, drops his bow, he's crying, his hair's standing on end. In other words, he's stuck. He's in an existential dilemma, conundrum. So he does what we should do, and that is approach a guru, who could be more authorized than Krishna himself, the Adi Guru. So he approaches him, and throughout the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is giving him the advice to solve his problem. But it always comes down to this, that you have to follow my order to do what you materially don't want to do. You're judging something with your material mind and material emotions and all of these things, but that's not you. If you work on that basis, then you'll be entangled in this world and you'll suffer. And you're not going to save their lives anyway. I've already ordained that they're going to die on this battlefield. So it'll be completely fruitless if you don't fight the battle. If you do fight, then you'll be victorious because I'm on your side, and you'll transcend this material calculation and this material conditioning, because Arjuna is representing us. So yes, it's a big change. I mean, this revolutionary. Nobody wants to, on the material side, give up all the fruits of their hard labor, and not hope for any happiness in this world. Have no sense of proprietorship. I've been working so hard to get money in the bank, have some security. Now I have no sense of proprietorship, and then I have to do something that I don't want to do. Fight, in the case of Arjuna. What's the percentage? It seems completely contrary to it. And it is. It's completely 180 degrees from material calculation. But that's why probably this is the essence of the Bhagavad Gita. It means because after all, everything is upside down in this material world. Remember the 15th chapter with the upside down banyan tree? It's all reversed. What's the highest in the spiritual world is the lowest in this material world. The adulterous activities between, But Krishna's dancing with the gopis and playing is the highest pinnacle of devotion. It's completely free of material desire. In other words, the gopis are doing it completely to please Krishna. That's their meditation. They're not just going out because otherwise they'd be competing against each other. They would conspire to keep the other gopi from going out, and somehow get there first. And sometimes they seem to be playing like that, right? They're upset that Krishna went off with this one gopi. Who was that one gopi? you know. But then when they actually see Radharani, they feel empathy for her, right? And a real feeling comes out. They're kind of playing at being, you know. It's complicated. But the point is, it's all for Krishna's pleasure. He's watching it, he's understanding what's going on, and then he appears before them, and it's so relieved, and you know, it's all very wholesome. Although, through material's eyes, this seems like a contrary to ordinary morality. But it transcends all of that. The whole thing is as pure as it can possibly be because it's under Krishna's guidance, and nobody feels unhappy after that rasa dance. Everyone's completely ecstatic. You know, even the husbands. It's described that it's the wives' spiritual body that went out, and they stayed there, and so they don't even feel envious. Yeah. Although they were trying to stop him, it's complicated. But anyway, so this is whoops. So Krishna is saying this is what you should do, and Prabhupada makes it clear that this is the purpose of the Bhagavad Gita. This is the kind of the high point here of this karma yoga. Karma yoga really culminates in bhakti yoga. When karma yoga is done properly, it's an integral part of bhakti yoga. Is that yes, you can be, you know, you have a household, you have children, everything, but you have to feel that I'm supporting this household and I'm working for Krishna's pleasure. I'm sleeping because this will make the body strong, so I can get up and do more service. And whatever I'm doing, yes, I'm raising these children for Krishna, and we're making a house into a temple and everything like that. In other words, there's a way to do it if we really want to do it, so that we can meet this criterion that Krishna is setting here. And then he says, but if you don't do it, those persons who execute their duties according to injunctions and follow in teaching faithfully without envy become free from the bondage of fruitive activity. But in the next verse, he'll describe what happens if you don't. So here's the promise. Become free from the bondage of fruitive activity. You come to me. We're bound down here by the ropes of material desire. But if we're free of those, that means that we're going to Krishna. Even in this life, we can be with Krishna, with where your consciousness is. Iha yasya hare dase. This is again another verse from the Bhakti-samrita Sindhu. Iha yasya hare dase karmana manasagira. Nikalashapya vastastu. Nikalasvapya vastasu jivan mukta sa uchite. This word jivan mukta is a technical term. That means that even in this material world, living in this material, you're liberated. It's not that you have to die to become liberated. You can become liberated if your conscience is pure. So what's the criterion? Iha. Now this word iha, long A, means activities. Hare dase are in the realm of service to Hari, to Krishna. What do you use to serve? Karmana manasagara. Your active senses, your knowledge acquiring senses, your mind, and your voice. He's giving them basically how we work in this world. If all of them are Haridase, within the realm of Haridase, you are liberated even in this world. You're already at perfection. So that's what the ultimate phase of karma yoga is that you look like you're an ordinary person, but your conscience is completely different. Just like boys who live in the ashram here, they're sweeping hard, they're cooking, they're going out and approaching people. So someone think, oh, they're doing more or less what I'm doing. But no, it's completely different. They may be sweeping, but they're chanting Hare Krishna while they sweep. And they say, oh, this is for Krishna. I'm not doing it for a salary, but I'm doing it because I want to develop my love for Krishna. And all the other duties that they do to maintain the temple and everything like that. So that mentality, the whole thing is the consciousness. That's why it's Krishna consciousness. Externally, people with the clouded vision think it's the same thing. But it's not. It's completely different. Your aspirations, your motive, and your consciousness while you do something, it makes all the difference. So Krishna is encouraging us to do that. And what happens if we don't do it? That's in the next verse. Any comments on this, text 31? Krishna is explaining why the previous verse gives the purpose of the whole Bhagavad Gita. All right, text 32. Ye tve tadabhyasuyanto nanutishtanti me matam sarva jnanavamudangsthan vidhi nashtana chetasaha. Like the Bhagavad Gita, there's no mincing of words. There's no time to waste. So Krishna gets right into it. But those who, out of envy for me, disregard these teachings and do not follow them regularly are to be considered bereft of all knowledge, befooled, and ruined in their endeavors for perfection. Purport. The flaw of not being Krishna conscious is clearly stated herein. As there is punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Executive Head, so there is certainly punishment for disobedience to the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. A disobedient person, however great he may be, is ignorant of his own self and of the Supreme Brahman, Paramatma, and the Personality of Godhead, due to a vacant heart. Therefore, there is no hope of perfection of life for him. So this is short but sweet, kind of bittersweet. So this is the nature of these books that we read. There's absolute language, and there's, because Krishna is the guru of all of us. He's the original guru, and the guru is meant to tell it like it is. Wake you up. There's a verse in the 11th canto where Krishna speaks after relating. Yeah, I think it's part of the Uddhava Gita. It's called the Ila Gita. Now, Ila is another name of Pururava. Pururava became obsessed with Urvashi, who came from the heavenly planets. And there's a long story, I won't tell it, but she eventually went back to the heavenly planets. He was still obsessed with her, and he so much that one day a year he could be with her. And then, so finally this Ila Gita is his song of renunciation, where he says, what have I been doing all this time? I've been meditating on this lady from the heavenly planets, and I become just like a worm in stool, and anyway, he liberates himself and says, no more. And so he gets free of that, and he goes on his, way of the bhakti. So then after that, Krishna is speaking this part of the Uddhava Gita. And then he says, this famous verse, Tasmad? No. He says, how's it go? Tasmad Guru Puja. No. Oh no, here it is. So he says, I forget how it goes, but he says, therefore one should renounce material association and seek association of great saints and find a guru, a saint. Because by their words, wish I can remember, I'm sorry about that. By their words, they can cut our attachments to this material world. Oh, here it is. Tasmat utsrijya duksang mutsrijya satsu sajjeta buddhiman. Santa evasta chindanti manovyasanga muktibi. Come to me. It's rare. So, tasmat utsrijya duksanga, bad association. The whole thing is association. Sangha. Sangha means two things. It means attachment and it means association. The famous satsang is Sangha. But it also means attachment. Dhyayado vishyan pungsa sangas teshu bhajayate. That what you meditate, this is Krishna is describing the fall of the jiva here, how you fall into the material pool. How by meditating on the objects of the senses, attraction for them develops, sangha. And by sangas, by continuing that, it turns into kama. Very, obsession for something. And when inevitably your kama is frustrated in this material world, and you become angry. And sometimes that anger is turned against yourself, and it's the psychology. This is where depression comes in. But kama krodha bhavati sammoha, you get completely bewildered. Sammoha smriti vibrama, you lose your memory. Smriti bhrangshat buddhi nasho. And when you lose your memory, your intelligence is destroyed, and boom, you fall down into the material pool, you're finished. It all starts with that contemplation of the objects of the senses. So by bad association, they're hanging out with your materialistic friends, they're always wanting to, have a party. Let's go here, let's do there, let's enjoy this, and hear stories about how you enjoyed before. This is material association, right? So that it says, tasmat duk sangam utsurja. Therefore, you should throw far away all of this bad association. And satsu sajjeta buddhiman. If you're intelligent, associate with the sat, the devotees. Satsu sajjeta buddhiman. Santa eva sachindandi monovyasanga muktibi. With their words, the sat, the devotees, especially the pure devotee, with their words, they can cut pieces the powerful desires in your mind. Mano vyasangam, vyasangam, again with the sangha. So many desires are in the mind. We're not aware of them now, but when the proper stimuli come up, oh yes, you remember, yes, let's go party, let's go drinking here. So that mano vyasangam. But the words of the Guru, Krishna, he can cut them asunder if you listen properly, if you listen submissively. You're right. I can see that this is not good for me. At the end, Arjun, what will Arjun say? Because Krishna said periodically, he says, you should fight. Become my nimitta matam, bhavisavyasacha. Be my agent, Arjun. At the end, he says, kadashe vachanang dava. I'll do as you say. By your mercy, my illusion has been destroyed. Now I'll do as you say. So this is the perfect arc of the Guru's disciple relationship. We're puzzled, what's the right thing to do? What's the purpose of life? So you surrender to the bona fide Guru. And then the instruction begins. When he sees the sincerity, the instruction begins. Now Prabhupada's pouring out the instruction in his books, in his purports here. He's giving Christians their instruction and the meaning of it and so forth. So that receptivity by hearing or reading Prabhupada's books is how we are in that Guru-disciple relationship. Now, of course, Srila Prabhupada is the eternal Shiksha Guru for ISKCON society for generations to come. It's been 54 years already. 55 years at Prabhupada. We're coming up on 55 years that Prabhupada has left in 77. So how do we associate with Prabhupada? Through his books, through his recorded words, which have a unique power because of the power of the spoken word, and his pure representatives. That association is still there. That influence is still there. We can see it. So Krishna is giving a very. Did we read this one? 32. Yes. So here's the result of not surrendering out of envy. Envy for who? Envy for Krishna. That's why we're here. Na anutishtanti. They don't follow my injunction. They don't follow this injunction in text 30, which is the essence of the Gita. So all their knowledge is vimudhans, bewildered. In other words, it's destroyed and useless. Vidi nashtana chetasa, they become destroyed, ruined. Of course, no living entity is ever killed. But to be thrown back again down into the lower species and everything, this is such a waste of human life. So this is a warning to us. Let's follow it nicely. Anyway, any questions on this 32? Or this section? This is all leading up to 37. This last few verses of this chapter, which is a very, very interesting disquisition on kama. 36 is Arjun's question. Okay, I want to act right, but what is it that forces me to act against my own will, even apparently, It's kama, Arjun, your eternal enemy. We can look forward to this week, we'll get into it. All right, let's go on. 33. Sadusham cheshtate swasya prakatir gyanavanapi prakatim yanti bhutani nigraha kinkarishyati. Even a man of knowledge acts according to his own nature, for everyone follows the nature he has acquired from the three modes. What can repression accomplish? Purport. Unless one is situated on the transcendental platform of Krishna consciousness, he cannot get free from the influence of the modes of material nature, as it is confirmed by the Lord in the 7th chapter, 7:14, Daiviyesha gunamayi mamaya duratya. Therefore, even for the most highly educated person on the mundane plane, it is impossible to get out of the entanglement of Maya simply by theoretical knowledge or by separating the soul from the body. There are many so-called spiritualists who outwardly pose as advanced in the science, but inwardly or privately are completely under particular modes of nature which they are unable to surpass. Academically, one may be very learned, but because of long association with material nature, he's in bondage. Krishna consciousness helps one to get out of the material entanglement, even though one may be engaged in his prescribed duties in terms of material existence. Therefore, without being fully in Krishna consciousness, one should not give up his occupational duties. No one should suddenly give up his prescribed duties and become a so-called yogi or transcendentalist artificially. It is better to be situated in one's position and to try to attain Krishna consciousness under superior training. Thus one may be freed from the clutches of Krishna's Maya. So this is a theme that comes up again and again. And that is that one has to follow the process of engaging one's activities in the service of the Lord. And without doing something radical or extreme that makes it impossible to do that. In other words, if one is impatient and tries to... a perfect example is this instruction by Lord Brahma in his prayers to Krishna in chapter 14 of the 10th canto. This is after the Brahma Vimohan Leela, and he steals the calves and boys, and Krishna for a whole year, he expands himself as the calves and boys. You probably all know that. And so Brahma, after a moment of his time and a year of earth time, he comes back and there's Krishna playing with the boys and calves. And he's completely bewildered. Looks like the same exact boys and calves. And I know that I put them in my mystic slumber, and he checks and there they are. There's this, And so he comes back and then Krishna expands himself into these Vishnu forms, and everyone's worshiping them. And so finally Brahma realizes, yes, this little boy with the yogurt and fruit in his hand and with the flute tucked under his waist is actually the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he gets down from his swan and he offers obeisances, And he offers these wonderful prayers. And the prayers in chapter 14, they're really very important. There's a lot of commentary written by our acharyas of those prayers. So I think number 3, right near the beginning, maybe it's 4, he has this verse which is often quoted by Srila Prabhupada and by Lord Chaitanya. And it's this, the way it goes is this, it says, Jnane priyasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti sanmukaditam babadiyavartam stane stita shuddhigatam tanuvan manobir ye prayaso ajitatitopasitaistri lokyam. So, I won't go into the whole story how Lord Chaitanya accepted this verse in his conversation with Ramananda Roy. That's for another time. It's very dramatic. But what this verse says, he says, Jnane priyasam, the hard labor of the impersonalists, which are always into Gyan. They're not into bhakti. They think that you have to figure it out and separate. By understanding, I'll be able to be renounced and self-controlled, and I'll transcend and merge into Brahman. So Brahma himself says, give this up. Jnane priyas, this hard labor of just gyan, reading the Vyanta Sutra again and again and again. Udapasya, and surrender. Surrender unto who? To the pure devotee who is always speaking and glorifying Krishna. Jnane priyasam udapasya namanta eva jivanti, and live this way. San mukaditam, from the mouth of the pure devotees. San is a word, is short for Santa. Santa is saint, like Santa Rosa, San Diego. So, San mukaditam, from the mouth, babadiyavartam, descriptions of your activities. They're always glorifying Krishna and his service and his philosophy and everything. And that's what Prabhupada did. You can get a perfect example of him. Constantly speaking, dictating the books, talking with devotees, writing, typing. It's always glorifying. Bhavadiya Bhartam. Stane sitak. Stay in your position. As Krishna says here. Stay in your position. Don't do anything radical. But add this hearing, ardent hearing. And then he gives this critical phrase, Tanuvan manobir. Here's how you're going to offer your respects to those words. With your body, with your mind, and with your words. How with your body? By following the instructions and do what's supposed to be done with your senses, you know. And with your words, you repeat them. And with your mind, you contemplate them. And the best way to do that is with other devotees. Discuss and, you know, read the commentaries like Prabhupada's purport. And what's the result? Ye praya so. This is the only way. It's rarely done, but this can be done. Ajita Jita. You can conquer the unconquerable Lord. Krishna is known as Ajita. That's one of his names. Trilokyam. In all three worlds, this is the only way to conquer him. In other words, you'll develop love for him. That's the only way to conquer him. Mother Yashoda could conquer him, right? She was able to tie him up. But none of these demons could conquer him. They all were destroyed. So, in other words, you'll develop. This is the path to know God, and this is the path to love God, and this is the path to conquer God in the ultimate sense. So that follows from this verse. What can repression accomplish? We're not into repression. We're into dovetailing. You keep the same senses. You act. You simply eat differently, walk differently, talk differently, act differently. You're not repressing the senses, because what will repression accomplish? But you're engaging the senses. That's bhakti. Rishikena, Rishikesha Sevanam. That's the definition. And also in the Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu. Giving up all false designations and simply identifying oneself as a servant of Krishna. As Lord Chaitanya says, Lord Chaitanya is Krishna. Jivera Swarupoi Krishnera Nityadas. What's the Sarup? The actual ultimate identity of every jiva? To be a servant of Krishna. Now, how to live in that identity, that's the whole instruction in Bhakti Rasamrita Sindhu and Lord Chaitanya's instructions to Sanatana Goswami. So all of the do's and don'ts that we've been given, that's how to live in any position, social position, in a Krishna conscious lifestyle and make progress. And in this way to become free of all this karmic bondage we've developed, and to not generate any more karma. This is Naishkarmya. And it's all centered on bhakti, which is the ultimate result, ultimate goal. Okay, any final comment or question? We'll end with a little shloka and a poem. So, it is said, you've heard this one before. Kamadina. Kamadinam katinda katita palita durnideshas tesham jata maina karuna natupano pashantihi. Utsrijaitan hatiyotapate sampratam labdha buddhis tvamayatak shadanamabhayam mamniyung svatmadasye. So there's some evidence, Madhavendra Puri wrote it, but it was spoken by Lord Chaitanya. It's in the Chaitanya Charitamrita. So he says, in how many ways have I sought to obey the seductive demands of my wicked desires? They've shown me no mercy. But on I've gone shamelessly trying to quench lust's unquenchable fires. But now I'm rejecting these hellish desires, for my higher intelligence now has awoken. O Krishna, O shelter of fearlessness, please let me serve you with faith that will never be broken. So he's not asking to that he'll just become free of the bonds of these wicked demands of the lust, anger, and greed, but that he'll get the privilege of serving Krishna. He's not giving up serving, but he doesn't want to serve his lower self and these evil propensities. That same service has to be rendered to Krishna, and that's perfection. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you very much.